Hey everyone, it's Daniel Elwood and Robert Johnson. We are the Last Nighters, and we are on the Launchpad Media, where they're always launching new ideas in your direction. This is going to be episode 65 of the show. We're talking about a movie documentary called Behind the Curve. A few announcements before we get into this. Just recently released is the Volcomic Voluntarist Origins 2, and we are the centerfold spread in that. The Last Nighters is in the centerfold position, so open.
How much
to the
nudity?
Total facial nudity is seen in this.
Sounds hot.
Well, actually, technically zero nudity, because we are actually covered by face masks in our astronaut suits as we're floating in space around a glowing blue orb.
Propaganda
system that is the Earth, the planet Earth.
Propaganda, sir. What are you working for NASA? Shilling for big NASA?
That is what we're going to talk about tonight on this episode, Behind the Curve, which is a documentary about flat Earth people and how popular it's been becoming again recently. Yeah. So we're going to get into
truth tellers. Finally.
Yeah, it's about time, right? The bleeding edge of truth, of science, and all the good stuff. So this is episode 65, as I said. So you can find the show notes more at lastnighters.com/65. You can find it on thelaunchpadmedia.com. And also our Patreon is at lastnighters.com/Patreon. We have pre-show and post-show content galore for your viewing pleasure. So let's get into the El Google Descriptione, which is how we normally kick these things off. If you're ready, Robert.
Hang on just a second. Okay, yeah, go.
All right, good. All right, here we go. Behind the Curve, 2018 documentary, 1 hour, 36 minutes, 6.5 on the IMDb, 100% Rotten Tomatoes. 66.
100?
Right, but only 66% of Google users liked it.
Well, those are trolls.
They could be. All right, here's the description. The internet has revived the conspiracy theory that the Earth is flat, and America's flat Earth movement appears to be growing despite hundreds of years of scientific evidence disproving the idea. The initial release was November 22nd, 2018 in Russia.
Oh.
This
was made by Russian bots?
Well, according to the Mueller report, is that how you say his name? Is it Mueller?
I don't know. How do you say?
I don't know. Anyway, according to that report, there's no collusion with Russia. But this documentary is amazing. There are pure gold moments in it, such as when Patricia was talking about the ... So that is a user review on the Google page here, and I didn't open the rest of it. So what are your thoughts so far, Robert?
Well, finally, someone has the truth and the courage to come out with the truth, and I really appreciate these people and their theories. The true science is finally being done. So, although there was some propaganda in the film, I mean, as we all know, beyond the ice wall in Antarctica, there are a series of there's the White Walkers, and the movie didn't go into that at all. And none of the people talked about the White Walkers. And we all know winter is coming and will be killing us all. So that was disappointing. But the rest of it was pretty much all true, I think.
But the wildlings are real, right? And the free man beyond the wall.
Yeah, that's all true. The documentary series Game of Thrones on HBO, that they talk about that.
Right, and the final season of that's coming up, which should be exciting for a bunch of nerds out there.
A bunch of truth tellers, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, so did I mention this is our April Fool's episode, by the way? So
no, you didn't.
Well, I'm about to mention it. This is
mention it. Are you going to mention
it? This is our April Fool's episode. Just mentioning that. Now, I am totally convinced by this documentary, though. And our buddy Mike C says, since NASA is essentially an extension of the military-industrial complex, then the flat Earth theory as a metaphor for them hiding the truth from us works for me as a metaphor. So that's some good commentary, I think.
Yeah. Well, in all seriousness, watching this documentary was like watching kind of an alternate version of myself. Had I not kind of followed you down the primrose path towards, incelability. I don't know, whatever this club is that we're in together.
I'm not in that club, actually. I mean,
no, this is the club that you were like, hey, Robert, come on, let's do it. It's going to be a sweet club. There's no girls.
Let's MGTOW it up.
Anyway, but if I hadn't done that, I mean, I remember, listening to a lot of like David Icke, listening to Alex Jones, and these are basically kind of similar kind of people. They're just very mistrustful of the government. I can't imagine why. Government just tells truth, and they're just looking for the truth. Now, they discount even their own data, the results of their own experiments, and the results of experiments of peer-reviewed people that are, experiments that are repeatable and have been repeated hundreds and thousands of times by people all over the globe. I mean, I'm sorry, the disc, the plane, I don't know.
I'm triggered right now, Robert.
I get terminology wrong sometimes. I'm sorry. But they're just like these cute little teddy bear people that just, don't trust, other people. And I thought it was hilarious how there's even like an elite, like too cool for school, kind of like, rock star kind of guy who thinks that everybody else is a CIA plant or whatever. Because that's
this is my movement. I'm the guy who came up with this. No, you were born about 400 years too late to claim that. Or 1,000 years too late or something,
Right, but it reminds me of all the people that accuse like Alex Jones of being like COINTELPRO or controlled opposition or whatever, because, these people would never actually, they're not even taken seriously enough to be even assumed to be a threat, but these people are not a threat in any kind of real true sense of the word. They're just like happy people that want to know the truth, but by wanting to know the truth, they believe some silly things. But 99% of the world believes in silly things, like government is legitimate and democracy. Yeah. So do the things that they believe are any sillier than the average statist? I don't know.
Yeah. And mentioning that, the whole conspiracy angle. And you and I both kind of went down that rabbit hole for a little while before we found the incel MGTOW Austrian economics.
And said, yes, this is it. This is the real goodness right here.
Yeah, this is the one. But they even do that in the documentary where they're like, okay, this guy, the main guy, what's his name? Mark? Something like that?
The guy from Whidbey?
Yeah, the guy from Whidbey Island. He was saying that he had gone through several progressions of, I was into this for a while, and then I was into this, and like, yeah, this whole like, computer graphic type like bookshelf with all these little titles on it. And I noticed that several of the book titles in there are actually true things, like declassified actual things like MK Ultra, Operation Northwoods, the global warming hoax was listed on there. So it's like they mix in like actual things, but then label them as conspiracy to kind of color them as all of these are crazy, out there, weird, you shouldn't believe in them or even question it kind of things. Like the whole label of conspiracy theorist is not hey, let's engage in debate and have discussion about this. It's meant to shut down. It's like the soft, you're a racist.
Yeah, it's meant to shut down and shame. Like, not only is this wrong and bad and dumb, but it's, you're dumb for even entertaining the idea.
Right. And to believe in what the government...
Like kind of gaslighting people.
Right. And to believe like the narrative of like, say, the 9/11 Commission report. James Corbett has a great video on this. It's like 8 minutes long. And he's like, if you believe this, and this straight out of the report, then you might just be a conspiracy theorist. Because it's a hell of a conspiracy to have all of these events just happen to happen as outlined in the official report. In the official report, right. Yeah. So I'll post that on our show notes page at
to be fair, though, for the past 2 years, the mainstream media has been pushing this conspiracy theory of the whole Russia-Trump collusion thing, which we just finally kind of come out as bullshit. So, conspiracy theories are popular and they're everywhere, but certain conspiracy theories are demonized and while others are kind of like celebrated. Just depends on what your perspective is, I suppose.
Right. And I don't think that you'll hear people call the Russiagate thing or whatever it's called a conspiracy per se. Like not in the same tinfoil hat sense where it's meant to like be like you're crazy, unless it's on partisan lines. Like the conservative media might say something like, "Oh, it's a conspiracy," but the mainstream media. So I'm sort of like
the ones that are pushing it. You mean? Yeah.
They're not going to call it conspiracy,
right? No, of course, it's perfectly legitimate when they're doing it. Just like these flat earther people, I don't think they call it a conspiracy, do they? Or do they call like NASA a conspiracy against it?
Right. And there's so much I want to like get into already. But the point about the mainstream media, they're doubling down. They're like, well, the report's 300 pages. We haven't looked at it all yet.
Yeah. That's what you do when you've been running with a narrative for 2 years. You have to double down and triple down. It's like Smollett. When he got called out for his bullshit, he said, no, double down, triple down, quadruple down. It's what you do.
Right. Yeah. And he's still saying, oh, I'm innocent of lying about it, and I was attacked, and all of these things. And there's all sorts of like shadiness going on. Even the mayor, Rahm Emanuel, who never lets a crisis go to waste, is also like condemning him, which is surprising, right?
Yeah, when even a scumbag like Emanuel is calling you out, maybe you really are a scumbag. I don't know.
Yeah, I was like, that's pot calling the kettle black right there.
Yeah, I don't know where. Yeah, glass house is Rahm. You know what I'm saying?
Does this man have no decency? Look in the mirror, dude. But anyway, what the fuck was I talking about? Oh yeah, so they're not going to consider a conspiracy in the mainstream media, and they're going to double down. And we saw this also happen with the Covington stuff. Even when the longer uncut unedited version of the video shows that the original narrative was totally off base, totally incorrect. People were still clinging to the idea that these kids must be racists because they're wearing a MAGA hat and because this one kid's face happens to look like a smirk.
Well, and I love the new defense. I think that the New York Times is going with in the settling their defamation lawsuit. They're going with we weren't lying. We're just really bad at our jobs. Isn't that the greatest defense of all time? I mean, they're not wrong, but they're kind of wrong. I don't know. This is the New York Times. It's a shit rag. No one expects any kind of like good reporting to come out of it, do you? It's mostly just propaganda and spin.
Yeah, one of the things I love seeing is like the Facebook ads for the New York Times or the Washington Post, like the truth needs you, or, you know, we have integrity and we need your support, you know, subscribe to us. And there's like 1,000 comments and 99% of them are, you guys are shitbags, liars, terrible reporters. There's a bunch of laugh reacts and all that stuff. And I love it. It's great. And the Washington Post one is like, democracy dies in darkness. And I'm like, great. Let it die in a dumpster fire. You know, like democracy is not a good thing. It's mob rule. It's imposing rules and leaders over others. I mean, you know,
it's the will of the majority at the expense of the minority. And the sooner people can get over it as this vaunted, wonderful thing, the better for humanity.
Indeed, I think that'll be a significant improvement if people can get past this illusion that is the idea of democracy. And that also reminds me of how this Mark guy talks about the eclipse later on. He's like, well, that's just the projection that they're showing you because we're in this controlled dome.
Truman Show situation. He even brought it up.
Right. He's like, that is literally what's happening. It's just much, much bigger. And so
but that begs the question, though, who made the dome? The lizard people? Is it the lizards?
Or the power elite? You know, it's
just the elite, just like
the corporate.
One night they just built this giant dome, or was it like in Spaceballs where they surround it with a big old? Or no, it wasn't. That's not Spaceballs, is it? Was that Futurama? What was the show where they come and they just clamp it down? No, I think that was Zim, Invader Zim. Yeah, that was Invader Zim. Never mind.
Well, Spaceballs, they have a sphere around it, and they suck out the air with the Hoover.
Yeah, but did you ever see Invader Zim?
No, I have not.
Okay, it's a cartoon back in the day on like Nickelodeon or something, and it's about this invading space alien guy. And one day he's flying out, but he finds out that the whole world, the sky is a projection because the planet has been stolen by this like world destroying trucker race of people. It's awesome. Anyway, that's what's happening in this situation.
Right now, there is a bit of a grain of like philosophical consideration here, and that is.
Anyway, wait. What happens when you shake up the snow globe? I mean, is that where the snow comes from?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
That's what earthquakes are, Robert.
Is it God shaking it up, or the elite shaking it up, or is it just like space Jesus? I don't know. You tell me.
Don't ask questions.
Turtles all the way down? Is the turtle like shaking?
Turtles and tangerine juice, apparently.
Okay. Anyway, sorry. What were you gonna
say? I don't even know anymore. What was the last thing I said? Let's rewind the tape.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh man,
you had something. That I interrupted you.
I had something, and it was gonna go all the way down the turtles. Oh, it's Atlas shrugging. Apparently, he's holding it.
Oh, of course.
Got the shakes or something.
Makes sense.
Man, what was it? Oh, okay, yeah. So there's a philosophical point of consideration here, and that is this: like Plato's cave, where you're only seeing the shadows on the wall, and it's presented to you, and that's what you're raised in. That's all you know. How would you know any different? So let's say you are Truman, and you're born in this environment, and it really is a projection, and everything you see is contrived and scripted and planned ahead. And we saw this also in Dark City, right? Where we wouldn't really know any different
unless somebody was able to break out of the Matrix or whatever.
Right.
And that's what these people are, right? These are the truth tellers who are breaking out of the Matrix and telling the truth to everybody else.
Yeah, I think that's how they view themselves. And there's also a corollary to us in our economic leanings in feeling very similarly, like we're adherents to Austrian economics, and it's a very much maligned, not accepted view of economics.
Even though we win like every debate.
That doesn't matter. But you get what I'm saying, right? Like they view themselves as that, the Gandhi progression. First they laugh at you, then they something you, and then they fight you, and then
they
you
fight you, then you win.
Right. And there's a progression, and I know Rothbard referenced it in some of his writings, but there was a guy who came up with this like progression of how scientific thought evolves. It's not linear. It's not like the Whig theory of history where what came later must be better than what came before. Like whatever was in the past is no longer valid or good. It's only the new stuff that matters because it's a constant progression in an accumulation of thought, an accumulation of like better ideas and better theories. When it's really more of something is a breakthrough, and at first it's maligned. People don't believe it. People think, oh, that can't possibly be true. And then over time, it finally becomes more accepted, and then it becomes the mainstream view. The main, like, this is what everyone now believes, and it stagnates a bit. And then the next thing comes along a generation or so later, and it is similarly discounted on the initial concepts of it, right? And it goes through this kind of cycle, this stops and starts. And there is information, history is lost, ideas, theories are lost. We lose knowledge over time. Things do go down the memory hole and get rediscovered later. And so it's not linear, and it's not something that just because it's new, it's good or better than what was in the past.
Right. Yeah. That reminds me of the guy who had the theory on plate tectonics. There were several competing theories at the time when they were trying to figure out how these animals got to different continents. And I think one theory was like the land bridge theory, that there used to be these bridges to all the different continents. But the other guy had like the plate tectonic theory, but everybody just kind of like laughed at him for a long time. And so, knowledge fades. Science comes in and out of fashion. Ideas come in and out of fashion. Like Greek fire, we still don't know how to make Greek fire. But so you're kind of giving this guy some sanity points then, right? Because that's kind of where he sits. He's saying that science hasn't been able to disprove him. He thought that he was just going to get destroyed, in the first 5 minutes of purporting this theory, but he claims that he hasn't been.
I find that a little bit dubious, but I also think that people do view themselves in their own story. Like they're the star of the show. They are the hero of their story. They are they're the underdog taking on the establishment or whatever. And so I do give him like credit for that. I don't think he's right unless, I'm going to go full April Fools and be like, haha, this is, I believe it, April Fools, but I just blew that. So I think that they have and it's demonstrated in the movie and what you said earlier, they have a very significant confirmation bias by what they believe to where they don't even accept the results of their own experiments. Like they were like, okay, we have this very high powered, very calibrated
gyroscope, and super expensive.
Super expensive. And it's like high end. And if the Earth were moving, it would move like this amount.
Like 15 degrees shift per hour. Right. Drift.
And then we ran our experiment and there was this 15-degree shift. And there's supposed to be something wrong with this thing.
There's gotta be something wrong. We gotta encase it in something that'll stop the like heaven rays that were coming down and interfering with their experiment.
Well, they first tried a Faraday cage, which I think eliminates any radio wave, anything really penetrating it. And then he was like, well, that wasn't strong enough. So we need something like with the Heaven's Gate kind of stuff.
We need some magical shit.
Yeah, we need the magical shit. That's how we got to make this very expensive, very precise thing work, different than how it would work if the Earth were a globe.
Well, and we've talked about this before, that confirmation bias. If you've made your living off of a certain thing, how much information would need to be presented to you in order for you to change your opinion when your entire livelihood is dependent upon it?
Oh, so
like Alex Jones is like a paleo conservative guy, and he makes his bones that way. No matter how much, anarchist thought, libertarian thought really you give him, he's still going to push the conservative, like constitution type stuff. Or this guy, or, any statist, like if you talk to a cop and explain to him how immoral his job is and blah, blah, blah. Or this guy who now there's like a conference that they go to. He's got a podcast or a YouTube channel. I don't know how much money he's making, but apparently he's got like fame, at least, if not fortune. I don't know how much money he's making, but he seems to be doing okay. But everywhere he goes, he's just smiling and happy and getting recognized and being a celebrity guy. So I don't know. Seems like a pretty good deal. I guess that's why, televangelists are a thing and snake oil salesmen are a thing. And
yeah,
you got words to say on confirmation bias. Go for it. I know you're just waiting for say go good to do it, Daniel.
Do the thing that I do. Yeah, because I got confirmation bias myself. I mean, it's a bit of like an echo chamber situation too. And you see this in mainstream media and also in social networks now, where people only fraternize with people who think similarly to them. And so when they don't get exposed to anything outside of that very much, then they think everyone must think the way that I think or my group thinks. And then when they get exposed outside, then like the other is like totally evil or has evil intent or purposes or are just plain stupid. Like, so you see this all the time now. And I think that is one contributing factor that maybe social media has with how divided people are becoming, because we are able to hive off. And in a way, I think that's a good thing. We should be able to associate with people that we agree with. And I would like to do that in real life, like covenant community style. Like I want to live with people who share similar values to me. But back to the confirmation bias, just as a concept, I think you were hitting on like someone who makes their bones about like being famous for or known for a specific thing. They're going to be very resistant to being able to change course if everyone knows them and they become famous for a certain thing. And then if they were to be convinced of something else, then there would be resistance to them flipping on that, right?
Right, then, like Stefan Molyneux when he kind of made his Trump move. That was a big kind of, he got a lot of pushback from, his like principled libertarian people.
I think rightly so in that case. I mean,
well, sure, but to your point.
Right. And then on a smaller scale, what's the old saying? Like you can't expect anyone to see anything that their paycheck depends on them not seeing or something like that. So like you said, in the local scale of it, it's if your paycheck is depending on you believing this system or believing that your job is a good job or, something that's righteous and something you should be doing, then you're not going to see all the negatives associated with it. You're not going to buy into that because it's your food on the table is at stake here. And it's not even like a conscious thing. It's going to be so outside of the realm of possibility that you won't even consider it. In fact, you might not even hear it.
Right.
When
you're right. Your mind would come up with some other excuse for why this data exists. Like when they were doing the experiment with the thing
in the water on the canal,
the compass. Well, they're doing the compass thing, and they were like, "Well, there's got to be some sort of interference in our experiment. Like we've never seen this interference before, but it's got to be there because there's no other explanation. Because we know we're not on a globe. So yeah, your brain. I don't think it's like a malicious thing. I think it's definitely a thing that the brain does to maintain a level of sanity. Because otherwise, you're going to have like a psychological break.
Yeah, I mean, is this like a form of cognitive dissonance? It's a blind spot to protect the ego.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. What did you think? What did you think of the people in this documentary? I thought they were super adorable. Like there's like a love story going on there, and I was kind of like rooting for the love story. And they reminded me of a lot of people around here because there's a lot of like well-meaning hippie types, especially on the islands of Puget Sound.
Yeah, and where that guy is, South Whidbey. I mean, if you're not local to here, I mean, it's kind of known for kind of out there folk.
Yeah, it's where the weirdos go to live, and that's totally cool, and they're totally happy. That's what you're gonna do. But I'm just, I thought they were just adorable people, even if they believe silly things. God bless them. You go and do you.
Right, and go ahead.
No, well, at the end of the day, their main motivation is distrust in what they're being told, and I can't blame them for that.
Right. And back to that confirmation bias thing, they're finding a community as a result of this. And it's sort of built upon, this distrust of what the government tells you. And I share that. Like, I don't believe anything they tell me. And that's a George Carlin quote, like, what's the first rule? Don't believe anything the government tells you. So they have that sort of common enemy type situation that brings them together, and they found a sense of community, which I think is also one of the factors that goes into, like, say, cults. Like it becomes your community and it becomes your identity, and so breaking free from that becomes very, very difficult.
Right. It comes at some point, probably the belief system kind of attracts you to a cult, but then it really becomes about the family and the community. And the beliefs almost kind of become secondary, and it's more just about having that family experience.
Right. Now, back to the people you were talking about. So South Whidbey, it is an area where sort of the weirder types end up, and also in the San Juan Islands around here. And in South Whidbey, there's a town called Freeland, and the name of the town is because it was a commune 150 years ago or whenever it was, where it literally was free land. Like it was this commune that lasted a certain amount of time, and then of course it failed because that's kind of what they do. And that, I think, is why that area is still kind of attracted to by those types of people.
Yeah.
I'm saying words.
You are saying words, Daniel. You're doing a good job of it. But yeah, the San Juan Islands are kind of notorious for attracting, alternative lifestyle type people. Not to say that there aren't a whole bunch of like normies that live there, but like, this, but the one time I got invited out to this like religious retreat where I found out all these interesting facts, like the moon is fake and it was made by the lizard people to make women menstruate once a month to keep them down and oppress them, and all kinds of fun facts, which I finally found the notes for.
Oh.
While I was there for this like 2-day retreat, I was furiously scribbling notes of quotes that she said, and they disappeared, but I refound them, and maybe someday we could go through them and like come up and like talk about some of the funnier ones, but I'm not going to go through them now. I just recently found them.
I think that would be a great Patreon bonus content right there.
There you go. Perfect. But that was out on Orcas Island, one of the Whidbey Islands, or the San Juans. So, I had something brilliant to say, and I just lost it, and I feel terrible now. You should.
So the moon, you said that the moon was oppressing women by making them menstruate. So the man in the moon is the original patriarch.
Yeah, well, everybody knows that.
Even though he's made of cheese and he's a projection on a screen.
Yeah, the problem is that the competing wacko conspiracy theories kind of conflict with each other. So if it's a fake moon, well, of course it's a fake moon. It's a projection. But if it's a projection, how is it making women menstruate? Because there's no gravitational pull. Because gravity doesn't exist. Gravity is just made up BS, right? Even though we're all kind of like walking around on the disc. Why are we all walking around on the disc?
And there's tides and whatnot.
Yeah, well, I don't know why that all happens.
Yeah, and how would Ben Franklin making the Farmer's Almanac like know the height and how, whatever the other term is, like how high the tide comes in and how far it goes out?
I think he was a lizard man, wasn't he?
The exact time it would happen. And there's also other things that are in there, like when the phases of the moon are, and like even the Aztecs and ancient peoples knew when certain celestial events were going to happen. Like, how would they know all of these things unless it's all in this intricate, like algorithmic projection system that's far advanced technology to anything we have today?
Well, technology is lost, Daniel. Like you were just saying, I'm using your own words against you. So way back in the day, back like 100,000 years ago, technology was better. It's probably the Atlantean technology is probably what happened. And they built this giant dome thing. Although why they did, and what was here before it was.
Well, that's what Dark City is telling us. They're the lobster dudes coming down, taking over the dead people like vampire zombies.
Is it a projection screen or is it like an LCD screen? And if so, are there like panels and they got to have like workmen to go up and like replace them every once in a while?
Have you ever been on the beach and like picked up a grain of sand and were like, what if there were entire worlds in this grain of sand? You ever think about that kind of thing? So what if this entire disc dome structure we are residing on right now is like Dark City, but on a scale of to where it's that projection dome thing you see in the Jetsons, and George Jetson and Jane and Elroy and whatever the Rust of Buckets maid is called is looking down on us right now, laughing. Rosie. Yeah, Rosie the Riveted, looking down on us right now in their freaking dome on their little, plasma.
So this is a TV show is what you're saying. Like in South Park, this is a TV show. Or no, not South Park, Rick and Morty. And someone's going to have to get swifty.
Yeah, we're like 14 different dimensions. I'm fucking Pickle Rick. I mean, come on here. All right. We're way off the rails here. So
there are no rails. This is all about crazy people.
We're finding the curve. Where is the curvature? All right. So we were talking about people in this documentary. There is one person in the documentary who's an astrophysicist, woman, nose ring, purple haired. And I had to ask, is she the one who piloted the starship in The Last Jedi into the Dreadnought?
Yeah, she's the one. Yeah. So I was surprised to see her. They must have filmed that one after they filmed this because, obviously she's dead now.
Or is she? See,
no, she's dead. No, we saw her blow up in that documentary Star Wars movie.
We did see that. Yes.
The Star Wars documentary.
And the evil capitalist casino and the animal cruelty in the entire waste of a second act in that film. Anyway, another thing I wanted to bring up is I think Mark says this whole thing is going to flip. Now, when he says that, does he mean that the disc itself is going to flip? And is he sort of speaking as if he's a congressman from somewhere talking about Guam?
I think I want it to be that we're all of a sudden going to find ourselves in the bowl and we're all going to be squished together in the bowl. Hey, then you can pretty much cop all kinds of feels. Ladies can't stop you. No, I think he means that the perspective on the flat Earth is going to flip. They're going to reach that tipping point, and all of a sudden, the truth is going to come out, and the majority of people are going to believe the truth that the world is a snow globe.
Okay, so the progression of science, like we were talking about earlier, the consensus, not that that's really scientific, but is going to flip to where people are going to believe this is the prominent theory or the accepted theory.
Well, that's just funny. I mean, you could come up with any kind of batshit thing and then go, hey, they laughed at Magellan, or they laughed at Columbus, or they laughed at, name the scientist or whoever guy that believed a thing that wasn't the prevailing idea. It gives credence to your claims, but you saw the part in the movie where they were at the conference. And it just reminded me of even the few times, maybe even us, like the candles in the dark thing, where, you're around a bunch of like-minded people, which is great. But then there's that one guy who's like a little bit off, and you're like, okay, all right, there's one in every group. But in this group, there's like all of them. These are all those guys. And they're all like, everybody has a competing conspiracy theory to explain every little last thing in the world that they don't quite understand. And they all conflict. And it's just, I don't see it ever really growing, like as a movement, because they're all such individualists. They happen to be held together right now by this one common belief, but they don't agree on, they each think the other person could be a secret alien space Nazi person or whatever.
Right. Yeah. And they talk about how there's all these different factions of who believes what, is it a dome, or is it, is there
the infinite plane, the infinite planers? Yeah, baby.
Right. And we see this in libertarian circles too, like all this fractioning and factioning, this segmenting. And I mean, it blows my mind because like it should be very simple.
Right. But we're talking about intellectual movements. Intellectual movements are by their very nature not, cohesive, powerful movements necessarily. Like, I guess, like Bolshevism and like Marxism was like an intellectual movement to start, but they quickly realized that they had to get control of government in order for it to be like a force. It couldn't just be like a book club. But if you're just a purely intellectual movement, kind of like libertarianism is, or these flat earthers are, I really, you have to actually convince people. You can't use the machine of nationalism and patriotism and, or religion, or, these things, these ingrained cultural movements and ideas and powers that can really push an ideology or an idea into the mainstream.
Interesting. I want to respond to that, but I'm not sure exactly how.
Okay, you think about it.
All right. Well, can we go to the Matt guy who thinks he originated this stuff? Okay,
but you feel free to push back on anything I just said anytime. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to throw down.
All right, we'll throw it down. Maybe in the Kathleen Turner Overdrive available for our Patreon supporters at lastnighters.com/Patreon. Throw that there. So the Matt guy he's the rock star dude. He's like, I'm so cool that I don't take meetings and I don't need to.
Dude, he's a freaking awesome prima donna. So smart.
You're whatever, and I'm not gonna legitimize your conference by attending.
You're all in the CIA, you sons of bitches.
Even though I'm butthurt that you didn't invite me. But that guy, he says he came up with this whole thing, but as far as I know, and I mean, yeah, I was educated in public schools, but I thought that the prevailing theory for 1,000 years was the earth was flat. So, I mean, where's this guy coming from?
I'm guessing he's taking credit for the modern revitalization, I would assume is what he's trying to say, but okay. I could be wrong.
Now, you mentioned that you don't see this going very far, but I think it's already gone very far. I mean, there's this documentary about it, and they have it ending, and it's become very popular. Their YouTube videos get millions of views, and there's thousands of these videos. And I'll add one more comment, and then you can stick your big nose in here. Even prominent NBA players have talked about the flat earth theory and how they believe it. I mean, it's
those intellectual giant NBA players. I know it's true.
But my point is they have a big following. it's out there in the culture, in the common culture.
It's true. It's very true. I wonder, if you took any kind of idea, and took a cross section of who believed it, you'd get a wide swath of humanity. I think it is funny though. I mean, there are probably more flat earthers than there are ANCAPs in the world. And I don't know, maybe not libertarians yet, but maybe soon. There's something seductive about it, especially when you got the truth on your side, you son of a bitch.
Maybe that's our next target, is to get flat earthers to come to the one true faith of economics and political philosophy.
Yeah, it'd be a tough sell, but it's possible.
All right. So did you catch Alex Jones on Joe Rogan?
Yeah, sure did. I didn't see the whole thing, but I caught a bunch of it. I got the part where he said he's retarded, which is hilarious.
Right. And I only saw snippets of it, but I saw something that said like they purposely had someone else on there to be antagonistic towards him, promoting a conspiracy theory such as flat Earth. And
yeah, that's Eddie Bravo.
Okay. So this literally was the discussion, right? Like this one guy's like, I'm a flat earther, and Alex Jones, you're the biggest, most known conspiracy theorist in the world.
Oh, I don't know about that. I don't know if Bravo is there to push flat Earth. I know Bravo was there to pretty much poke the bear of Alex Jones to try to get him to go off on whatever to try and defend his ideas and whatnot. I didn't watch. I guess I should have watched the whole thing, but I just didn't. It's freaking like 4 hours, even though it's like super, super funny and entertaining, but the excerpts and memes are better. Anyway.
Yeah. And Jones does flip out. I mean, constantly, but I mean, if you've seen him more than a dozen times, you're kind of immune to it.
Yeah. I see Jones as more of kind of an actor kind of guy. He's the guy that always claims to have the documents, but he'll never actually show you the documents. The only thing he ever points to are just like headlines of like news article he prints off the internet. So,
right, but he's got the documents.
Yeah, I've heard that one 4 million times, Jones. But Bravo is a kind of a notorious conspiracy theorist. He's always the one kind of pushing to talk about, he'll talk about 9/11, but he'll also talk about the moon landing or JFK or just any number of things. And I think he was trying to get Jones, because he's always been a big fan of Jones, but I guess lately he's been a little bit upset with Jones, maybe going back on some of the things he said in the past. I don't know. Okay. I don't know. What do you think? I think it's hilarious that, Alex Jones goes on Joe Rogan and it's one of the biggest shows in the world, like way bigger than any like single mainstream media outlet. I think it's like tens of millions of views, and that's just views. That's not like MP3 downloads for the podcast. And then this is after Jones was deplatformed, right?
Yeah.
So clearly
for a while.
So the Streisand effect is in effect. People are like, you got rid of this guy. What's he saying that is so dangerous? He must be saying something interesting or something true. But also when he goes on there, like the mainstream media like pitches a little hissy fit and goes, Joe Rogan, why are you, giving this guy a platform? Why are you giving him a chance to speak? Because he's such a dangerous human being or blah, 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 whatever. Do
they equate him as Nazi or white supremacist these days?
I think the blue check marks, from what I see, mostly just get upset that he's a dangerous person. Mostly they were upset with the Sandy Hook thing
and the fake news thing.
Yeah, him saying that Sandy Hook was a staged event was what really kind of upset them. Now, I don't give a shit whether you think Sandy Hook was a staged event or whether he says Sandy Hook was a staged event. I don't understand how that's a dangerous thing to say. So what? A lot of people believe a lot of things that aren't true. What? We're all responsible for our own ideas, and
I mean, and if it happened, and I don't know, I wasn't there, it's a terrible thing, but it's no justification for disarming people.
Yeah. I was watching, have you seen a lot of Keith Knight recently? I've been watching quite a few of his videos. He's been killing it. He tends to throw a lot of amazing arguments. He packs them into these little videos.
Yeah, he's working with Pat at Liberty Weekly now, and they're doing shows together and also like individual stuff. But he's great. He's like a fire hose, and he's like very rapid fire.
Yes, you need to. Well, I need to like pause his video and contemplate, some brilliant thing he just said, because it's another brilliant argument that I had never considered before. So I recommend anybody who's interested in the things we talk about to check out Keith Knight's "Don't Tread on Anyone" YouTube channel.
All right, we'll post that on the show notes page. So, I mean, Robert and I, we have the occasional argument that we slap together with some duct tape and glue, but Keith is he's on the ball on this stuff. I think he's made it his mission to hone these arguments.
Yeah, and he'll destroy arguments. He'll be hitting things from he'll just provide so many great arguments in a short time that he just completely obliterates them. It's fantastic. So keep up the good work, Keith.
All right, good job, Keith. And we should have him on sometime, actually. I think that'd be fun.
Probably would be.
All right, so let's we need to start probably winding this down a little bit, but there was one comment that I thought was pretty interesting.
Oh yeah.
And that was the whole the woman who's the love interest, and they're like, well, her initials are CIA or something, and so that confirms that she is
confirmed.
Yeah, Illuminati or whatever. And she's like, do you really think the government's that stupid to do something like that? And I'm like, yeah.
Well,
maybe not that, but they're really dumb about most things, and really.
Well, it's just like her name ended in CIA, right? It was like Patricia or Alicia or something.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and that's the thing that people are queuing on, as if there's gonna be these breadcrumbs.
Yeah, and those weird female names like Alicia or Patricia or whatever her name was. It's like it's the only the only explanation. CIA.
Right. And
I love it.
I don't think they're stupid enough to do that, but I think that they are stupid enough to do plenty of other dumb, ruinous crap.
For sure. And they will hide things in plain sight because they don't give a shit. I mean, they're a monopoly. What do they care?
Yeah, there's really no consequence, which is something we talked about in our pre-show, which, I think consequences and bearing responsibility for your actions and having individual responsibility is a big deal. And it's a way to temper behavior, and it's a market-based response, and it's all good things. One other thing I wrote in my notes, and this goes way, way back to my grade schooling days, where we talked about, there was this question posed in the class. They're like, all right, think of a bowling ball, a very smooth bowling ball, and then think of the earth. Now, if you could do either of these two things, make that bowling ball the size of the earth or shrink the earth down to the size of the bowling ball, which one do you think would be smoother to your touch?
I assume you're trying to get me to say the earth would be smoother.
That is the correct answer per my public education, because they basically said, all right, take the highest mountain, Himalaya or Mount Everest, and the deepest trench, Marianas Trench. And the spread is like, what is it, 60,000, 70,000 feet, something like that. I'm sort of pulling numbers out of my ass here. But then if you were to compare that same difference on a bowling ball, the differences, even on a smooth ball, would be far greater than that proportionally.
Wow. So you're saying that the earth was manufactured
by precision German engineering.
Now it makes sense. I'll bring it back to the Nazis. So the earth was manufactured in 1940, or 1930s probably, before the war, by Mercedes-Benz, BMW? I don't know.
Probably. Yeah.
VW?
One of those.
It was probably a joint effort.
All right, so let's talk a little economics here, because there is a guy manufacturing things for sale for a market, and he makes this badass wooden motorbike with like an iPad control panel.
It's electric, right?
Yeah, it's fully electric, and it's very torquey, apparently. Like the one in Elastigirl's bike, which my kids love. They want an Elastigirl bike, even though they don't understand.
Badass. I mean, you'd need to have her powers in order to make it work like she does. But
otherwise, it'd rip you in half. But but this guy was making these model like clocks, model scale models of this flat Earth, with the domes and the sides and the ice and all that stuff, and like the precise movement of the sun and the moon in relation to each other, painstakingly handcrafted. And I think he had numbered them, I think, and he was in like the 30s or 40s when he was demonstrating them. But I mean, the amount of time he spent making these things, I mean, what do you think he would have to sell them for to like make it worth his while? I mean, yeah, value subjective, but my word,
hundreds at least. Yeah. I mean, you're not selling them for like under $100. There's no way. You're just not making enough money.
Even if he sold all 40 of them for $500, I mean, that's still not worth the thousands of hours he put into those, right? It's not a living wage, man. It's like below minimum wage.
Yeah, it's below minimum wage, but it's a labor of love. I think all those guys are, they made a big deal out of that documentary being about the community and the happiness. Like a couple of guys were like, man, I lost my family about this. I lost my friends, but I got these new friends and I'm a happy guy, blah, blah, blah. I mean,
happened to me with this libertarian stuff.
Yeah, see? Yeah, there's a lot in common with these guys.
Yeah, and I hope that we're not like the fringe crazy people in real life. Like, I think that these flat Earth guys are fringe crazy and like legit fringe crazy. Like you were saying earlier, Magellan, everyone thought he was crazy and whatever. Yeah, there's those 1 in a million examples where it worked out. But there's the 99999 of where you are really a crazy person.
Well, kind of like how we fit in with normal society if you don't happen to be talking about politics or economics. I think these people fit in with normal society if you're just not talking about the globe. Like, I'm sure you could have a normal conversation with them about anything else, like just like anybody else.
Yeah, I've got this.
But are we fringe like they are? God, I hope not. I mean, we're more fringe, but I think our views are more grounded. They better be. I mean, we're right about everything, right? I mean, They believe they're right about everything, but we're really right about everything, right?
See, and that's the conundrum. It's like this self-fulfilling thing. But I've got this great meme related to the pretending to be a normal person. It's a guy reading a book and it says,
okay, wait a minute. Wait, I thought of one. Before you finish that,
to fit in with normal society.
Okay, wait. I thought of one way we're different.
Okay.
We're willing to accept new reason and evidence, right? And they were not. They were discounting the results of their own experiments.
But they didn't see it as that. They even said that they would accept the results.
Oh, they said that.
But then when it came to it, they're like, oh, it must be wrong. So, like, how can you trust yourself if you're so invested in that way? And I view a lot of scientific inquiry this way too. And I'm no scientist, but I think that there is a lot of, and it's not intended to be this way. It's not supposed to be a preconceived, like, I'm looking for this result, therefore I'm going to do this, this, and this. It's supposed to be
right. A lot of studies actually do find the thing they were looking to find.
Right, and especially when you get into economics and in the mainstream
sociology, yeah, for sure.
Right, and they're trying to divine theory out of statistics or experimentation that they've been doing. Anyway, I hope we're not in that same circle, but you wouldn't really know if you are. Back to Plato's like cave, right? Like maybe we are in that dark city dome.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we are, Daniel. We'll have to think about this one, see if we actually are. Is there some experiment we could do that would prove whether we are or not? Does it involve going into a California trench? See, maybe their system is better than ours because they could actually go into a trench and prove whether they're right or not.
Yeah, let's talk about that before we wind down. So the final test they do is this canal, and I assume that means that the water level is consistent, right?
Yeah, I'd assume.
For a distance long enough to be able to see if there is I guess it would appear lower on the horizon because it would be over the crest of the curvature.
Well, they had two poles at either end and then one pole in the middle. And so then if the light hit all three poles at the exact same height, they would know they're on a flat Earth. But if there was variation, they'd know there's a curvature.
Right. Initially, they couldn't focus it enough.
Right. It's like a shotgun.
Right. But then by the end, they redid it with like kind of a different way of doing it. Maybe a hole in the middle one.
A pinhole. Yeah. They were shooting it through a pinhole. And then that would make it so it wouldn't be scattershot.
Right. And they ended a little bit ambiguously. At least for me, I didn't quite catch it, but it seemed to say that, oh, it's way higher. Like, oh, I can't see it. Oh, raise it up higher, higher, higher. And then they raised it up 3 or 4 feet and then it caught the light.
Right.
Therefore demonstrating that there was a curve.
Exactly. And then they go, that's interesting. And you wonder what outside theory is going to come in to explain that curve.
Right, but it's literally roll credits right then, right? Like they don't let that sit and analyze it at all. It's just like that's the end.
That's it. Make up your own minds. I don't know. I thought it was a fun movie. I recommend it to anybody. I think it's an interesting look into human psychology, and it probably reflects some of our own. You can see yourself in it. Depending on no matter what you believe, I think you can see some of yourself in it.
Right, and this almost sounds like summary and review time. But before we get to that, I did want to mention that I did see a Facebook video of guys on the equator in Africa having tourists come, and they would like demonstrate to them the different swirl direction that water would go down a drain on the northern hemisphere versus the southern hemisphere, and then what happens directly on the equator.
Oh, how it like shoots straight down?
Yeah. So they would have these funnels and they would pour water in, and on the north it would spin clockwise or whatever. They put like a flower in there and it would like spin down. Then they went to the south side and it would spin the other direction, right? Because that's like, in New Zealand and Australia, it's everyone knows Crocodile Dundee's bathwater goes down the opposite way. And then at the equator, it goes straight down. Just no Coriolis effect or whatever it's called. And the thing gets sucked right down. Now, my question is, in that video, he's using 3 different funnels, one showing the direction on each, right? And do you think it's possible that you could doctor the funnel to get the desired effect? And so to really demonstrate the difference, he should be using the exact same funnel in all 3 locations.
Probably. I don't think you can doctor a funnel to make water swirl a different direction.
What if you rifled the spout and then the opposite, like corkscrew, and then nothing down the middle one? Because they were 3 distinct and marked differently funnels.
Sounds like something you could do yourself. I don't know, man. It's been a long time since I was in science class, so I can't really speak to that. But if you have more to say on that, let's do it. But I do want to get to the fact that the latest news. Remember, there was the guy that was shooting himself up in a rocket. There's a flat Earth guy who was trying to launch himself into orbit, right? Remember this in the news? It was not too long ago.
Vaguely familiar.
Okay, well, I think it was like last summer. Anyway, there was a bunch of delays, and I don't think he ended up doing it. But the latest thing is that there is an Antarctic expedition planned for these flat Earth guys, by these flat Earth guys. So they're gonna get to the wall in Antarctica, and they're gonna climb over it, and they're gonna get instantly murdered by White Walkers. It's gonna be awesome.
Or the Thing.
The Thing might get them too. You never know.
And Kurt Russell's gonna go down there, fly his helicopter down there, badass style.
Set them on fire. It's gonna be sweet.
Yeah, Wilford Brimley will be there. It'll be great. He'll make some oatmeal. I don't know.
And then the penguins are gonna be dancing. I don't know. That's what happens in Antarctica.
Yeah, happy feet. All right. Well, I think we've beat this horse to death on the Behind the Curve. Let's get into your final summary review, Robert.
Okay. Well, this is a great film. It's on Netflix. Go check it out. I mean, if you already are a subscriber, and for the entertainment value, I don't know why you wouldn't be, especially if you're listening to this show. It's a short film, but it is fairly well made. I would say that the main draw for me is just to watch the human oddity character study stuff. I mean, it's all just these interesting personalities believing this kooky stuff. And, you could probably just turn on the news to get that same kind of effect. But here it's a little more benign. These people aren't really, some of them have an agenda, they're making money off it, but they seem to be genuine believers for the most part. I look at most of the world and go, well, how can you believe that crap? Or you're just faking it and you don't really believe it. You're just pushing a thing. You're trying to sell something. And this is an example of that. But this is I don't know, they just seemed like teddy bears to me. They didn't seem like they were out to hurt anybody. They were just like they were after the truth. They knew they were being lied to. They weren't sure what the truth was, but they knew they're being lied to. And I can sympathize with that big time. So I really liked this movie. I thought it was a sympathetic view. I didn't think it demonized the people. Even though I guess some of the people were upset by the way they were portrayed. I think the diva guy was upset by the way he was portrayed.
I think no matter how he was portrayed, he would have been upset.
Exactly. He's just gonna be upset no matter what. But anyway, check this movie out. If I had to give it a rating, I'd say it's like a 7.5 or something like that. It's a documentary. It's well made. If you're into that sort of thing, you'll be entertained. I watched it and the time just breezed right by, and I was totally charmed by all the people in it. And it didn't convince me one whit of what they believed to be true, but it reminded me of just like the sweet old lady or person in your life that that is kind of a little bit kooky, but is so well-meaning and so full of love in her heart that you just can't help but love them. And just like your eccentric old aunt or uncle or something, and you love them. They're great. So yeah, check out this movie, Behind the Curve, on Netflix. Daniel, what did you think?
Well, I think that you gave it pretty high praise there. I found this to be kind of boring to watch and a bit lengthy. The only thing that really kept my interest was the fact that the guy was somewhat local to us, and he was staring off in the distance at Seattle, and well, I shouldn't be able to see those buildings if there's a curve, right? But I guess the curve wouldn't obscure the entire building because those buildings are 700 feet high or 800 feet high, and so they would only obscure the bottom 10 or 20 feet from where he was, and it seemed to be doing that. So I don't know where he's getting this from, but I think it's relatively well done. It's certainly interesting to watch, and it did spark. It's a cultural thing, right? We see people espousing flat Earth on Facebook all the time now, and I think a lot of people that I know use it as a filtering mechanism now. They're like, if you believe this, then I will delete you or mute you or whatever. So they're using it as a filtering mechanism.
Meanwhile, statists believe in far more dangerous things. Just 2 cents.
Oh, that's true. Yes, far more dangerous things. If flat Earth was the worst thing that these people were thinking of or about, that does no harm to me. If they vote and think that we just need one more law or one more tax or one more regulation, and then we'll have a better life and a better situation, that's far more dangerous. So I will agree with you there. But as a score, I'm going to get a flat, middle of the road 5.0 for my score on this.
I appreciate that, but it's better than that.
All right.
Appropriate score, but you undersold it, sir. Yeah, but if that's the way you feel about it, that's fine.
I'm contriving it down a bit. It's probably more like a 6, but just for the sake of, it's got to be a 5 for me.
Okay.
So anyway, that's our summary and review. Now next week we're going to continue on this path. I don't know why we're on this streak of flat Earth dome structures, but we're going to continue down this path into the Truman Show, and we're going to invite a former guest back again. Olof the Anarcho-Viking is going to join us to talk about the Truman Show, the Jim Carrey, the socialist movie that is basically an extension of this whole flat Earth theory. So I think that's going to be a lot of fun. He's a good guy, and we had a lot of engaging conversation with him. What was it called? Outlaw King? That was the episode?
Yeah. He'll be a great guest again.
Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to that. And then I think after that, we might do something with Anarchist Mom or the Patreon supporter who suggested Dodgeball might be available. So, and if it's, whatever one we do next week, then the opposite of those two we'll do the following week. So we're planning ahead, everyone.
I'm fully on board with this.
You're fully
on. All right. I'm fully on board, Daniel. I like your ideas. All
right. I got lots of ideas, and we're going to get into them in some of the overdrive after this that's available for our Patreon supporters. So check it out on Patreon. Check it out on Patreon. And also check us out on the Launchpad Media and the show notes page for this episode on Behind the Curve at lastnighters.com/65. So I will say good night from last night, everyone.
In 2017, the Libertarian Union was formed. Finally, the average Joe Libertarian could find a thriving community of independent podcasters and content providers, all in one convenient location. At Libertarian Union, we'll always have the latest news, interviews, discussions, and even movie reviews. With hundreds of episodes and more added all the time, you'll always find something fresh at libertarianunion.com.